right here. First of all, let me backtrack. I'm in the Google Books, the book search, right? I just put a couple of keywords, Falasha and Hebrew and words. 3 words, Falasha, Hebrew words. The first search, now there's about 168 available books that you can look at. And I put for the full view, so you can look at the full view of it from the Google book search. The first book is the Wesleyan Methodist Magazine. And this is around 1869. Now remember, 1869, when you think about it, what were the Falasha, the Beta Israel, the lost sheep of the house of Israel doing in America? Those Beta Israel, those so-called enslaved Africans, what were they doing? You understand? At this time, the Wesleyan Methodist Magazine, they were doing a study on various biblical things and also on Ethiopia. Now what's interesting is that they say something right here on page 363. Let's go to page 363. Un momento, por favor. And this is edited by George Whitfield, George Story, and Joseph Benson. And the page that opens to 363, it says this. A couple of interesting things in the portion that is excerpted here. They said their complexion is more or less black. Remember, we said that a little bit earlier in the other segment. Their complexion is more or less black, but they have not the physical type of the Negro. So when they say the Negro, they're trying to keep a barrier and a separation between those Beta Israel at home and those abroad in what the Bible calls the captivities. Understand that? Now it goes on to say they retain a deep and a pathetic attachment to the Holy Land. Now, you know, if this was said about so-called European Jews, this would be considered to be anti-Semitic. Well, it is anti-Shemitic. You understand? They retain a deep and a pathetic attachment to the Holy Land. While reading this, I said, is this sentence somehow attached to the sentence before where it says not the physical type of the Negro? If you over Shakespeare and how these writers write, they do write like that because everything is taken in context, and one idea sometimes touches on another idea. You understand? But for the layperson reading it, they won't really pick up on it. But let's just go on. It says the word Falasha means exile or wanderer. Isn't that what our people were when we were exiled from the east and we wandered, and some of us was caught up in the events that took place in the 1530s, either from the Portuguese Jesuit side of it, or either from the Ahmed Grind and the Ottoman Turkish Mohammedan side of it. You have to understand those events and how closely they connect with the trans-Ethiopic ocean slave trade. Now, many have said, well, you're incorrect about that because you are Bantu. Well, you know what? So are a lot of the great ones that were in the East before the East became as pathetic as it is today when you think about it. You understand? There's a link with the Bantu as well with the Beta Israel. I know people say, oh, no, there can't be. You're just making this up. No, we're giving you the evidence. You disprove this evidence. But let's go on with the Wesleyan Methodist Magazine that we have here. It says, so Falasha means exile or wanderer, and the name Philistia is evidently cognate. You understand? In other words, Philistia, Philistine, was Philistine, a different word, but to the Eurocentric interpretation, misinterpretation, looking at the English anglicized version of these Hebraic and ancient Ethiopic words, Falasha and Philistia is the same thing. But if you listen to the Ethiopic, Phalasi and Philistine, you know, the Philistine, the people of Philist, not the people of Falash. So that it is different. It's only cognate in the English. So that is imagined right there on the part of our Wesleyan Methodist Magazine scholars. But let's go on. It says they speak 2 languages belonging to different physiological stocks. So 2 different languages. Well, of course, because you have to remember that the Kemetic people of Africa and the Shemitic people of that between region right there came together in various places, both in Sudan as well as in Ethiopia and that whole region, the Horn of Africa, Eritrea, as well as Somalia, as well as portion of Kenya. There is this coming together of these 2 stocks, the Shemitic stock as well as the Kemetic stock. That's why you look at Barack Obama and you say, well, he's the first black man, even though his mother's white, okay, but his name, Barack Hussein Obama, and then you're going to find out that he really has black, Arab, or Ishmaelite blood link within him. In other words, from Arab stock, and you're going to find that the Arab stock is actually black people. But see, a lot of people, a lot of folks are not going to want to accept that as true, because they're under this, like Charleston Heston and, you know, these movies, Moses, and these other kind of movies that they have produced, these classics, Cecil B. DeMille's and others, which are very interesting as theatrical works of art, you understand? But according to, you could say, the race types that they use in the movies, the ethnic types and ethnicity is totally off. But let's go on. So they say these people have two different language that they use, and it's from two different philological stocks. It says one is the vernacular of the district, the Amharic, but the language which they use in their families is a dialect of the Agao, or the Agor, like the Ze-Agwe. A very interesting point about Ze-Agwe. Do we have time right now to touch on that? We have a couple of moments, a minute and a half or so. So we're going to touch on this right here about the Agao. You understand? The Agao, the Agao. Zagwe. You heard of Zagwe before. The Zagwe is the one who built the several rock-hewn churches in Ethiopia, such as Lalibela and the Medane Chapel, the Georgis, and several others, Sion, and other rock-hewn churches. They were part of you could say, a dynasty or a dynasty that was called the Zagwe. And Zagwe in the Ethiopic means Ze of Agwe, like Moa Anbesa Ze'im Negeda Yehuda. You understand? So now what's interesting about what they're saying right here, they're saying that many of these families are of the Aga. You understand? The Aga. Today, some Ethiopian scholars will tell you that the Zagwe were illegitimate. You're going to hear this often. They were illegitimate. They were illegitimate. His Imperial Majesty doesn't agree with them. Perhaps it's the Gurage them within him that doesn't agree with that. That's why he said there was no interruption from the time of Shlomo and Saba, or the Queen of Sheba and King Solomon's time. But they call them illegitimate, and the real archaeological and architectural, rather, works that have been done in Ethiopia date to this illegitimate, pseudo-illegitimate dynasty, you understand, called the Zagwe. The Zagwe are not illegitimate. You see what they were? They were our people. Those are many of our people who were oppressed, and some of them were taken into the slave trade. Some of them were enslaved. Yes, the East African slave trade involved two major partners. One was the Portuguese Jesuits. After they did us the good deed with Ahmed Quran, they came and then did a bad deed with trying to enforce, I guess maybe the real intention of their mission, the Ethiopians under the Pope of Rome. And this caused a lot of bloodshed right here. First of all, let me backtrack. I'm in the Google books, the book search, right? I just put a couple of keywords, Falasha and Hebrew and words. 3 words, Falasha, Hebrew, words. The first search, now there's about 168 available books that you can look at. And I put for the full view, so you can look at the full view of it, yeah, from the Google book search. The first book is the Wesleyan Methodist Magazine. And this is around